All right. All right, good morning. Thank you everybody for joining us for our latest, greatest Downtown Management Forum. Today we're going to be talking about how municipalities can support their businesses reopening with social distance. Don't worry, nobody's speaking for, we have 4 people speaking today, but nobody's speaking for a long amount of time because we do, as you all know, these are really exchanges of ideas and for all to participate in. But we do have Bob Zuckerman, who's a trustee with South Orange Village and also the executive director of Downtown Westfield speaking. Myself, Nancy Adams, who's a council person with Maplewood Township and also the ED of Summit Downtown, and then Stuart Koperweis, who's president of Economic Development Strategies and also executive director of Hoboken Business Alliance. All right, I just got to get my slide forward. For those of you who don't know downtown New Jersey, we provide education and advocacy around economic development in our downtowns. I actually just wrote, we've been around for over 30 years, and we started in the time when people were leaving the downtowns and sprawl was king in big box stores and highway corridor strip malls, and through the resurgence, and now we plan to help you all out through this hard time. We do educational activities, advocacy, as well as we recognize our members. We are a member-supported nonprofit, so if you're not a member, please do consider supporting us. That's what pays me the big bucks to do these Zoom webinars. I wanted to just give a little update that Downtown New Jersey was added to the Main Street Committee of the New Jersey Restart and Recovery Council formed by the governor. We've had 2 meetings now. It's been quite interesting. I think most of the people, at least on the Main Street committee that we're hearing from, I'd say probably 75% of them are kind of slow and steady. We want detailed guidance from the state on how to reopen. There is, a percent of the members that would like to reopen tomorrow and think that the businesses can, do it all on their own without guidance. Which is interesting. But for the most part, I think even the business owners on the committee, et cetera, feel that, they need a lot of guidance and don't want to open too quickly such that they have to reclose again in the fall. Just a couple other updates in case people didn't see. There was a bill signed by the governor last week that allows for pickup and delivery of mixed drinks. Before it was just things in original containers, but now I know a lot of restaurants were doing it anyway, but now they officially are allowed to do it. There isn't any info online, but if you call the ABC, the voicemail says they're reviewing the extension of premise regulations. It does also say that they're going to require a permit, so you're going to have to apply to be able to do that under your existing liquor license. So stay tuned for that. Curbside delivery for non-essential retail started on Monday. I'm sure you've all heard that. As of the 19th, archery ranges, batting cages, golf driving ranges, horseback riding, shooting ranges, and tennis clubs were allowed to reopen. The governor also did it. Apparently EDA had a meeting this morning, I don't know if it's over yet, to allocate an additional $50 million from the CARES Act to small businesses here in New Jersey. So stay tuned later today for details of how they're going to make that happen. They did promise on our call today that it wouldn't be, they try to make it so it wasn't get on and the people who are able to get in there in the first 2 hours get the loans or the grants and nobody else does. So they're figuring out a way around that. It isn't the recap. They did give us a recap of all 9 committees and they are kind of in the same place. So that's kind of interesting and good to hear. Just earlier this week, the governor did do his 3 stages. And again, it's based on health. And they gave this morning, which I found interesting, who's able, 25% of New Jersey workers are able to work from home. 35% have low to moderate contact with coworkers or customers. And then another 40% have frequent contact. I just thought that was an interesting stat that I wanted to share from the meeting this morning. And again, earlier this week, this is the 3 stages. We're in stage 1. They want to see continued health increases, and I think they also want to have better guidance before they bump into stage 2. All right, with that said, we've been doing these downtown forums. I don't have one scheduled for next week. We're going to take off for the holiday week, but I'm working on one for the following week. If you have any suggestions of things you want us to do, let us know. And as always, all those past forums, there's summaries and videos and PowerPoints all up online. So without further ado, I will now bounce to Bob Zuckerman, who will kick off the official part of our talk today.
Thank you, Courtenay. And that's me with pre-haircut. I had my husband actually cut my hair a couple of weeks ago because I can't go to my salon. I think he did a nice job. Anyway, thank you very much for the introduction. I actually have the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it, to wear 4 different hats. I am indeed on the governing body. I'm a trustee. We don't have a council, we call it the Board of Trustees in South Orange. I am, for the past 8 weeks, I've been serving as executive director of the Downtown Westfield Corporation. I'm also president of the board of this organization, and I'm also a small business owner. I'm a co-owner of a pet food store in South Orange called Pet Wants. So I have a lot of experience with a lot of what we're talking about today in terms of dealing with legislation and ordinances that can either help or hinder our business climate and our business environment in our downtowns. And I want to talk to you about a little bit of one of my biggest accomplishments in my previous position when I was executive director of the South Orange Village Center Alliance, which is now very ably run by Julie Doran, was we created what we called a business review task force. And this was an ongoing process. It took us about a year and a half to go through all the different ordinances that were relevant to the point of making our business climate more amenable to more and more small businesses. What do I mean by that? Well, we really looked at our zoning and our land use ordinances to see what were permitted uses in on certain streets in certain parts of our downtown, and what were not, what were disallowed. And there are some very common uses for storefronts in today's economy that actually were not allowed in South Orange. It's kind of hard to believe. But for example, on 2 of our main streets, South Orange Avenue and then Sloane Street, which is a smaller street, but just adjacent to the train station, so kind of the heart of our downtown, we did not allow real estate offices. None, no residential real estate. Now, I know there are some downtowns that deal with the issue of having too many residential real estate offices. We didn't have any. And so that was one of the things that we looked at and said, why does this ordinance exist, this part of our code? It just doesn't make any sense. Sure, we don't want to be overrun with them, but we want to be able to have realtors in an economy where, you know, there is less retail, and at the time, more experiential retail, to be able to have that sort of a use. So we looked at that. We looked at things like game arcades. Now, right now, the game arcades like Yestercades are closed for obvious reasons. I hope that there will be a day soon when they can reopen. Children's play spaces, tattoo studios, sip and paint stores. Now you might say, wait a second, you mean like, you know, where you go in and as a group and you paint and you bring your own wine. How could that not be allowed? Well, it wasn't. It was considered general assembly, a use of general assembly, and it just was not permitted. So we actually had an independent paint and sip place that wanted to open in our downtown, and they were denied. So we took all of these examples and we worked with our planning firm, and we worked with our stakeholders, property owners, businesses, small business people, and government officials, and even the public. And we went through the code with a fine-tooth comb. And what we came up with was an amendment to our ordinance that now allowed all of those uses that I just spoke about. They may say, well, why is that important? Well, that's going to be even more important when we come out of this COVID mess that we're in now than it was when I did it a year and a half and 2 years ago. Why? Well, I think we know why. This is a very, very, very tough situation that we're in for retail. I mean, we just can't sugarcoat that. We all probably have, in all of our towns, we all have some small businesses that are not going to make it through this period. And it's awful, it's unfortunate, but it's just reality. So what we want to do is we want to take a look with our planning, with our planners, and with our other stakeholders. We want to take a good look at what ordinances our municipalities have on the books that could prevent new type of retail opening in certain locations in our downtown. I'll give you one other example that I think moving forward, we in South Orange might have to entertain. So one of the things we thought about was on South Orange Avenue, which is our main street. It's a county road, and it's a few blocks long where the commercial district is. We still do not allow medical offices. We have on our side streets we do, but on the main drag, South Orange Avenue and Sloane Street, the other really heart of the district, we do not allow medical offices. We may have to take a look at that, because what would you rather have? A whole bunch of vacant spaces or an urgent care facility or some sort of optometrist's office filling those vacant spaces? That's something that we're going to have to consider. I'm not saying that we have made that decision yet. We certainly have not. But it's something that we're going to have to think about as we go forward, because the whole retail environment is changing right before our eyes. I'm going to give you one other example from another town that I just learned about. That is the kind of thing that we want to look for and see if we can fix or change. I was talking to the business administrator in Milburn, actually a couple of days ago, and we have a restaurant in South Orange that had to leave South Orange because their space is going to be demolished for redevelopment. They found the space in Milburn. So I was checking with him to see what was happening, and he told me that this guy took a former restaurant space, so it's not like he's converting retail into food. It's still going to be a restaurant, but it's within 150 feet of a residential plot line. So because it's within 150 feet of a residential plot line, it has to go before the planning board. Okay. To me, in my opinion, that's an unnecessary step that's going to really hurt a town like Milburn, because you want to be able to take vacant spaces and fill them quickly with good, solid businesses like this person has. And if you now have a 3-month planning board exercise, that's going to delay things. And now he may say, oh, forget that. I don't need to go through that kind of process. I can go locate my restaurant somewhere else because there's going to be more vacancies. So these are the kinds of things that I think we really have to consider. I don't think we have the time to spend a year or a year and a half on this. I think all of us should start looking at our ordinances now with our relevant stakeholders and our government officials to take a look and see where there might be barriers to entry for certain types of businesses. But it's something that's really, really important. And like I said earlier, more important going forward than it even was a year and 2 years ago. That's my presentation. And now I think we're going to turn it over to Nancy Adams. Who
Nope,
also
nope, nope. It's Courtenay.
No, to
Nope, not
Courtenay.
Nancy. Yeah.
Turning back to
Sorry, I
Courtenay.
was having a hard time getting to my mute button.
Okay, we're turning it back to Courtenay, then
Yeah.
to Nancy Adams. All right,
Yes.
Courtenay, take it away.
Hi. Thank you, Bob. And we'll have more discussion after all four present on some of these ordinance things, the low-hanging fruit that you can work on. So I'm just going to jump right into mine. I want to talk really quick about some tactical urbanism things that are happening, in this country, around the world, et cetera, that you can start thinking about. And I'm just kind of going to give a very brief overview, and Nancy and Stuart, and then I think some other folks who are online are going to add to it about how you actually get it done. So, one is low-hanging fruit. If you have those push button signals, turn them to automatic so that people don't have to touch these things. Have dedicated delivery zones. Again, you don't need crazy, permanent signs that you put up. You can do these kind of temporary food pickup zone signs in your town. Pop-up bike lanes. This is in Manhattan. It doesn't have to be complex. Some cones, some tape, and a few signs, and you have a bike lane to enable people to spread out, especially since, according to the DVRPC, at least in their region, traffic reduced by 75%. So clearly the roads do not need to be prioritized to cars right now. And you can do it temporary. It doesn't have to be permanent. Although it might be nice when you do the temporary, you might realize you want to make it permanent. It's a good test run. People are closing streets all over the place. Again, doesn't have to be complex. Doesn't have to be every day. It could be every day, or it could be certain times of day, in the evenings, or only on weekends. Again, it's a way for you to open your space. Some advice from NatCo, and I'm going to add in the chat at some point. I have a bunch of links to different resources, but according to NatCo, you might consider, if you already have like a ciclovia plan, or you have places that you already typically close, those might be the ones that you consider for closing now. And also to look at close or limit through traffic on streets adjacent to or within parks. You could also look at your central business district as the place where you close your streets. These are some pictures of the Newark Pedestrian Mall here in Jersey City, which originally started with only weekends, and then finally over the summer, and then now it's closed down all the time. They extended it another block. And again, it doesn't have to be complex. They just put paint down and some Jersey barriers at the end of the street to begin with. And now they're working on making it a more permanent thing. They got some funding to do that. Making the pedestrian realm wider. So if you have narrow sidewalks, there are, to the right is Hoboken, nice and easy. Again, just barriers. Over to the left, this is a little more of a costly way to do it, but it does help to raise the edge to the curb so you don't have twisted ankles, etc. Outdoor dining. So these are some great pictures of what's going on worldwide. Adding plexiglass between tables or keeping the tables 6 feet apart. Love these little gazebo things. I'm sure that's not cheap, but very cute. Outdoor dining in parking lots, convert those parking lots, again, 6 feet distance. Big tents work. This could also work in your public plaza. The SID could buy the tents and put them up because you don't want people necessarily having to sit out in the sun. We know this, they want to be comfortable. Parking lots, not just for dining. Now this yoga clearly is not 6 feet apart. This is pre-COVID, but you could spread out even more. And the possibilities are endless. These are pop-up shops, but I'm just thinking, pop-up shops for your curbside pickup in the parking lot, as opposed to necessarily going to the storefront, farmers markets, etc. Lots of possibilities. Again, very big in Europe is using public plazas to public space, parks, plazas, etc. For private dining. I love to tell the story that in places in Germany, it's a public plaza, there's 5 menus on the table, and the waiter will get you your food and your drink from any number of the 5 restaurants that are on that plaza. The last one is actually from Bloomfield. That's their Dinner Under the Stars again. Pre-COVID, they're close together, but again, they close down the street and do dining outside. Outdoor parklets. So these are actually taking parking spots to turn them into public spaces. The one to the left this is a COVID one. The ones to the right were pre-COVID, but you can see it does not have to be complex. Some barriers, some ropes, some hay bales, flowers, etc. And there is, many people don't know, from the Together North Jersey initiative years back, there is a Parklet handbook, and I will put the link up there to give you ideas about creating your parklets. And again, they can be anywhere from, on the right side, very cheap, some AstroTurf and planters. You could use Jersey barriers, and then you kind of see the progression of the different costs that you could put into creating these parklets. Here in New Jersey, we've got people moving along. Something I heard on the Main Street Committee this morning was concerns about permit fees for outdoor dining, both from the town and from the ABC. So that's some low-hanging fruit that you really should think about. Your businesses are already struggling. They're going to have to pay to, set up, and then for the town to require you to pay a fee on top of that, it kind of hurts. And I know the towns are hurting too, but if we want the businesses to open, you got to support them. Brick did a 1-year outdoor dining permit that's approved by the zoning officer, so it doesn't need to go to the zoning board, making the process quicker and easier. Point Pleasant Beach is working with the county to build 6 parklets along Arnold Avenue and Bay Ave. Point Pleasant Beach is paying for them, but they needed the county's approval to be able to do it because they're county roads. So we've had this conversation before about working with the county. Fairlawn is working on outdoor dining and walkable streets. Metuchen, I believe we have a couple of people from Metuchen, so I'll bounce it to them after Nancy and Stuart to talk about some of their stuff, some of the stuff they're doing, outdoor capacity, new streets. They're also addressing some of the liquor license concerns. But without further ado, so 2 of them that are also on here that I won't talk about are Maplewood and Hoboken, because we have speakers who are going to talk to that. So I'm going to bounce it to Nancy next, who is going to talk about Maplewood.
Unmute. There, sorry, I was muted. What a horrible picture. Thank you for putting that up. So good morning, everybody. I'm coming off of a 2-hour Zoom call this morning with so for those who don't know, I'm a township committee woman in Maplewood for, I think I'm in my 5th year or so, and director of Summit Downtown. I've been director of SIDS in Red Bank and West Orange and South Orange. So like most people in my line of work, we kind of work in a lot of different municipalities. So I just wanted to give, I was speaking with Courtney yesterday, and I think that was yesterday, right, Courtney? We talked about what we're doing in Maplewood, and she wanted me to make the point to anyone on the call that things don't have to change. None of the stuff we're talking about doing to ease the burden on our businesses and to try to help them survive in this atmosphere is that none of it is permanent. We need to be really flexible as elected officials and in working with our downtowns. And we need to realize that we don't have to pass ordinances to change these things. We can do so by resolution, which eliminates the length of time it takes to do that and gives us the flexibility to do some things such as removing parking spaces or building parklets on or just using the street space as a pseudo parklet without having to build anything and just put barricades up. So it's important to look at your ordinances and see what's limited now. As we did Tuesday night, we passed 12 or 13 resolutions here in Maplewood to allow for some lifting of restrictions. One of them is regarding outdoor dining. Right now, it can only be done in front of your own business. So we're expanding that to allow, with permission of neighboring property and retailers, property owners and retailers, to allow restaurants to spread out their tables 100 feet in either direction, being mindful of what their restrictions would be on staff and how they could serve their customers. So there are a lot of things we need to talk about, that all the towns need to talk about with regard to even just using parking spaces right in front of different restaurants. So looking at your business districts and evaluating what you could do temporarily without closing streets down necessarily, but to just take away parking or allow outdoor tables on the street in front of those businesses that are there, and doing a business on a case-by-case basis. And just FYI, there's a tree service taking down a tree right next to me. So if they start up that chipper again, I'm gonna flip it to Stuart so that you don't have to hear that. So to be flexible with zoning and flexible with restrictions on outdoor dining and on businesses. We're also allowing retailers to put merchandise on the sidewalk. And all of this, of course, is with complying with the normal ADA requirements that are in place to leave 4 feet of clearance on the sidewalks. So definitely going to need stuff like that. Pedlets and parklets. If you can't do a parklet, you can do a pedlet, which expands the sidewalk and allows people to a narrower parklet, if you will, to guide pedestrian traffic around the outdoor dining tables safely. We're also talking about using municipal spaces like public parks or public spaces that are around to have businesses scheduled to do outdoor yoga or outdoor classes. There's a lot of the exercise studios, yoga and so forth that we have here in Maplewood are small. So in order for them to be able to continue business and continue the size classes they need to make the money they need to stay in business, they might need larger spaces. So that's a coordination between the municipality, the SID, if you have one, and the business itself. Curbside pickup spots, obviously. I just wanted to see what else we were doing. We want people to realize the lack of, when you're thinking of taking parking spaces or closing streets, you should also think about using parking spaces that are currently not being used, like New Jersey Transit commuter spaces, or changing commuter parking spaces to enable people to park, either employees or shoppers to park in spaces they would normally not be allowed to use. Also using public parking lots that might be smaller to do those same kind of sharing, enabling, in Summit, we're talking about enabling Will and Grace to have knitting circles and schedule those opposite when the bar method might want to expand outside. So being able to use paved space in downtowns that might normally be used for something else or for parking. So there is, I see you already shared the resolutions we just passed. And that's just a quick run through. So whatever else you want me to ask questions about, that's fine.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. And I will share the resolutions. I haven't done it yet, but I will get those up on the website where this summary is, and those will go up even before the summary is fully written along with this video. Nancy, I did have a question real quick, moderator's prerogative here. New Jersey Transit, have they agreed to this?
We don't, right now we have, I think we were going to be talking to them, and I think Victor Luca's on the line too. He might be able to share something. Our administrator was going to be reaching out to New Jersey Transit to talk about one of the lots is not necessarily, there are other commuter parking spaces that are not owned by New Jersey Transit. So to the extent that municipalities in Summit, there are mostly the commuter spaces are owned by the city. So to just change those through signage and everything else to change the restrictions on those to allow downtown employees or shoppers to use them where you're able. But yeah, of course, you always need, if it's New Jersey Transit's lot, you need their permission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Fingers crossed. All right, then let's jump to, and I see lots of good chatter going on in the chat box, and that's good, and your questions, we'll get to them. Let's let Stuart, if you're there, let me stop sharing my screen. First, I'll put up Stuart's mug. I'm sure he appreciates the picture that I found for him too. I'll stop sharing, and then he can, he's got a presentation from Hoboken that I think is wonderful that he's going to share.
I can't believe you put my mug up like that.
I did.
Well, she put up my prior to losing 18 pounds picture, so there you go.
Well, good morning, everyone, or almost afternoon. Yeah, it's been a little trying times for us all, and I appreciate seeing a lot of your faces here with us. I'm looking forward to giving you all a big hug shortly when time allows us to do that again. I've been fortunate to be able to work, some of you know, I've been in the Improvement District business for about almost 30 years now, and I didn't age myself, did I, Michael? Which you've been around with me as well. But we've been, I've been working in Fort Lee and Hoboken most recently, and in Hoboken I had the pleasure of putting together an ordinance with the help of city officials, and we've been working on that. And basically it's just an amendment, and I just want to say that, you know, with the team, with the president of our organization, Greg Delaquella, and also from the city itself, Jennifer Gonzalez, had put together the presentation that we're about to see. And it's really simple, but pretty straightforward. So with your permission, I will share my screen right now, if that's okay.
Yep.
Oh, you got to enable it. You disabled. Sorry, Courtney.
It should. I thought no, mine's not up, so it should allow you. Is it saying I have to give you?
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Okay.
Oh, hold on. Let's see. Multiple petitions.
You got to go to that right-hand corner thing, and you know, on the participant screen.
Sorry, multiple participants.
That's all right.
It says all participants. Give it another try.
Okay. Oh, now I got it.
There you go.
Hey. Okay, thank you very much.
Very good.
So there we go. So can you see this? Probably, I don't know, is it showing the full screen? Because I can't see.
Not yet. Not yet. It's showing it as a as a PDF.
Right, but I'm just saying, is it?
No, it's showing all the Adobe stuff, around.
Yeah,
it.
we can see it though, Stuart.
But we can see it, so go ahead.
You're not seeing my screensaver or anything else on behind there, right?
No.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure, so we're in the same boat, because I just multitasking at the same time. So again, this is just a small business recovery strategy. There were 2 ordinances that were introduced. One of them right here, this one was really just establishing and updating the Sidewalk Café ordinance. And then the other ordinance was basically allowing for a temporary updating of the chapter to permit uses of streets. So all of this information is based upon that, and it came from the ordinances. And again, Jennifer Gonzalez was kind enough to put this together. So the first thing was the gradual business reopenings, and of course you're familiar with that and how it's going to be working, cleaning and disinfecting standards with CDC guidelines and occupancy uses, which have been discussed already. The whole goal was to do expanded capacity, not just for restaurants, but for retail businesses and services as well, and extending it through October 15th and providing flexible capacity and encouraging, obviously, sharing outdoor capacity. And these are some of the items that we will be discussing, which is a sidewalk cafe expansion, a streetery, which would be, similar to a parklet, but we're just calling it a streetery because they'll be eating there, a parklet, and then open streets as well. One of the things that happen with that is that there are different ways of setting up these parklets and streeteries, and I will review that with you in a second. Let me see if I come back. I'm going to switch to another PowerPoint that talks about it. And this is some of the ways in which you can create the parklets in terms of different barriers, but I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Okay, so retail use of sidewalks, standard procedures. I think we're all familiar with what needs to be done, but one of the key elements here is waive approval process for 2020. And that was really one of the things that we're really hopping upon and making this as quickly as possible to get done. Sidewalk traffic expansion, again, expediting approval process for insurance purposes and fees waived for 2020. If the licenses have been paid already, they will be credited to 2021. So this way it's giving the businesses an opportunity to at least recoup some of the losses, or at least helping them in terms of the payments that they're working on. The liquor licenses, this is something that I know, I believe Courtenay and DNJ, and I know other organizations, and I'm working with Monmouth County as well, and our legislative officials to talk to the governor's office about making sure that the ABC applications can be expedited in terms of approving them to extend outside of their current petition area. And also if they have a sidewalk cafe that for the first time, that the state will approve that application on an expedited basis. So I don't know, Courtney, if you want to speak anything on that. Are you familiar with anything that you're working on in the state right now?
So, I gave a call and nobody answers the phone, of course, in ABC, but the voicemail says they're working on it. They'll let us know. And that's it. I'm going to also reach out to EDA to make sure they know it's a concern, expedited, and also talk about the permitting process and make sure that's expedited and not costly to people. Right. So in the works.
Right, thank you. Okay, so a streetery, that's basically, daily shared public space that temporarily converts parking area into an outdoor living dining area. Operations in residential zones from 8 to 9 and in commercial zones from 8 to 11. We're encouraging them to be shared spaces. They must be removed daily. It gets expedited approval by the engineering division. And this is the fee, but somebody asked a question regarding how do you pay for the lost revenue with the parking authority? Because obviously that's a critical issue. One of the things that they came up with is that it will be 50 cents per linear foot per day. So in other words, a $10 day. It would be $10 a day that would have to be offset to the parking authority. One of the ways they're looking to recoup this fee is either through the organization themselves in terms of the people making the application, or the improvement district could pick up this fee for each particular area up to a certain amount of numbers of parklets or streeteries that they were putting together. And this one basically shows you the cost, if you will, of putting up the barriers. This is a basic streetery with minimal barriers. This is another streetery with more barriers over here, which allows for more signage to be placed on those. And then if you wanted to, you can go to another one over here with enhanced barriers, and then of course with planters as well on that particular area. Now, what's interesting about this is that here is the whole cost structure. So it's telling you, assume one parking space will actually cost it depends on what it's going to be, but this services fee down here is daily operating fee from June 1st to October 15th, meaning that it would probably stay up for that time frame. So if you look at it at $10 per day, it would basically cost that particular space $1,300 and $1,370 for that space to the cost of the season. And this is the one-time cost of materials that would be necessary in order to put it up on a basic streetery estimate, cost estimate for $862. And that is obviously, depending upon this could be, we're working with different suppliers right now. So if the municipality and yourself, in terms of the improvement district or whatever organizations you have working with you, could do a bulk quantity purchase of these particular products, and then those prices will probably come down anywhere from 15 to 20, 25%, depending upon your quantities. All of this information is available through DNJ. They have a copy of it, and as well as the ordinances themselves. These are just some designs. Obviously, I think we're all aware of what's basically necessary in terms of happening. Again, this is some of this materials that we're talking about: the removable planters, 88 curbs, bollards and poles, and billboard barricades. So you can put your names in here if you wanted to, or the place of the business that's doing it itself. These are some sample designs of the actual streetway sidewalk cafe. Liquor licenses, I think we touched upon that already in terms of what needs to be done in terms of the expedition of the petitions for the applications. Okay, the parklets. This is a very interesting thing. Again, this is through April through October, operation hours, and that was a linear cost per day. The designs, very simple. These are some examples. We all have examples of what they are looking like, but these are just some of the examples that we utilize in terms of what could be put together. Liquor licenses, same situation in terms of consumption. City open streets, this is probably one of my favorite options here. It basically saying that what we're trying to do is this business open streets. And somebody had asked a pre-question to me, and it was asking whether or not the ordinance actually says, are you stating that the ordinance is open for business? It really doesn't say that we're open for business. It's just really amending the current ordinances that allowing for the street closures and for the expansions of the sidewalk cafes. What's interesting is that the fees for temporary no parking, sanitation, traffic control, possibly offset by donations, or they could be handled by your particular organization and improvement district as well. Again, the liquor license issue, and then of course getting started and that type of thing. So one of the things I would like to go back to here is the actual cost of these particular elements. This is basically says how much it's going to cost for each particular one. Startup costs for basic eatery, and then the fee for it, which is basically the parking space. And that's about it. There was an issue here in the ordinance. I wanted to state to you that it basically says this is the interesting thing about the ordinance is that it just really deals for the calendar year 2020. So what we did was just add in these particular issues right here. So I know there's a lot of information on the chat screen there, which I haven't been able to see yet. So
That's okay.
Questions. Okay.
We're going through. And I think I'd like to, Jason Delia, who actually just added to the chat, and I was going to actually introduce you. He's a council member with Metuchen. Would you like to bounce on and kind of talk about, because I know you guys are doing a lot of similar stuff real first, and that before we open it up to everybody?
You want me to stop the share right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Thanks for letting me speak. I was actually just planning to join today to listen in, but I'm happy to share what we've been doing. A lot of it is very similar to what we've heard so far with Maplewood and Hoboken. In fact, Stuart, thank you for sharing that presentation. We took a lot of inspiration for what we ended up putting in our resolution directly from what you and Hoboken put together in there. So
great,
appreciate that.
Glad to help. We're all here to share.
Exactly, yeah. So like I said, a lot of similar topics, right? So our resolution will be up for vote on this coming Tuesday. We decided to go through a resolution. We had debated back and forth whether it had to be an ordinance, had to be a resolution or not, based on the temporary nature. Our borough attorney approved us going forward with it as a resolution. So that'll be coming up. We are thinking of expanding the sidewalk space, much like Nancy had mentioned. So you're not going to be limited to in front of your particular premises anymore. With permission from your neighboring businesses, you'll be able to sort of stretch out along the sidewalk area. We have public municipal parking lots that will be opening up for potential use by businesses. There is a short stretch of a street. We have our main street, which is a county road, and then perpendicular to that is what's called New Street. The New Street businesses, those sidewalks are very narrow. So any business that wanted to come out there, they would not be able to keep proper distancing. So to help those businesses as well as our others, we decided to shut down a section of New Street. So that'll be happening on Fridays for dinner time. So Fridays at 4, all the way through the weekend until Sunday at nighttime at 11 o'clock. So that'll be able for those businesses to come out into the street, get a little more social distance space, and it'll make for honestly a pretty people are pretty excited about that. We did an announcement earlier this week, and a lot of people are excited about the prospect of an open air sort of dining area. So one of the things that I'm sure is in all these other ordinances and hasn't really been highlighted much is we're also allowing additional use of private spaces. So we have several alleyways, which are privately owned. So we're working with those people that own those alleyways so that people can not only stretch out on the sidewalks, but to be able to move into those alleyways so they can start using those a little bit more. As well as we have a few businesses, we're not obviously as urban as Hoboken, so we have businesses that actually have their own parking lots and have their own outdoor spaces, which have been limited, based on previous ordinances, but we're temporarily allowing them with permission to sort of expand out further into those private spaces. So if they have a parking lot, maybe they want to use their own parking spaces to sort of stretch out. Maybe they have an existing patio or even just an outdoor grassy area where we're going to allow them to take more advantage of that. So yeah, a lot of all similar stuff, parklets we have in there. Basically, we just wanted to be flexible. That's what we were looking for. We listened to our businesses. We let them tell us what they would prefer to do. And we made sure our resolution covered as much as we could, within reason for what the businesses wanted to do.
Great. Thank you, Jason. And I have all of Metuchen's stuff too. So I will add that up there. And any of you who are on here, if you already have ordinances or resolutions or anything you want to share with me, I will get it up on our website so that nobody's recreating the wheel here. I did have a question because Nancy, I think, is yours an ordinance or is it a resolution?
In Maplewood, we passed 13 resolutions Tuesday
Resolutions. Okay, so it's resolutions as well. So it sounds like everybody is going the resolution route to make it quicker. One question I see up from Deb Lawler is allowing pop-up shops. Has anybody kind of tackled that yet?
No, because they're already allowed, depending on the use. In most municipalities, I don't know. Really, that usually is something you need to deal with the property owner to see whether or not they'd be willing to lease to a temporary tenant. But I don't know of any municipality, maybe somebody does, that prohibits pop-up shops, but usually it's just based on the zoning permitted by that location already.
Deb, did you have that question because you have somebody who doesn't allow it? Or
we're just wondering if any special permitting, or I know that some areas, like out in Chicago, the municipalities actually require an application. So I guess that certain types of COs are done every time they want to rent on a temporary basis like that. So I was wondering if there was anything special that needs to be done at the municipal level. And also the municipality takes a fee for these pop-up shops that go in.
That would be something I would try to get the municipality to ease up on. In some municipalities, as long as the space already has the CO, if, like, for example, they had a CO and then the space was vacated, they should be able to, unless they're doing any changes, electrical work or anything else, plumbing, then they shouldn't need them. But, some towns are different.
Thank you.
great. I see a question from Cindy Reese. How do you prioritize which businesses can use municipal lots?
I'll just throw in, that's something you're going to need to, and the SID should be really helpful with that with regard to scheduling use of those. It might be something that would be best handled by the Special Improvement District. And that can be done with Sly Reply. There's online sign up like Sly Reply where you have the slots open and people sign up for them, so they can literally go on to Sly Reply, pick the time, see what times are available, and try to pick them. And it's going to be a trial and error thing for sure.
It's SLYREPLY. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add about municipal parking lots and who gets to use them? Because I imagine it's one thing to sign up for slots for like yoga classes or whatever. It's another thing if you're going to let a restaurant use the space and how you prioritize which restaurants, all restaurants, etc. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Courtney, this is Isaac and Metuchen.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So it really is a balancing act, and it's looking at all your public and private spaces. One of the things to be very sensitive to, and we found this talking with our businesses, is anything that would eliminate curbside pickup for businesses that are financially benefiting from that right now. You want to be really careful to preserve those curbside opportunities. But in the parking lot, really the strategy is to go business by business and just go through the checklist of all the different things that they could be doing and figure out the ones that fit best. But the real point that I make is it needs to be a balancing act between the kinds of activities and uses and the revenues they generate, and try to be as fair and equitable as you can.
Yeah. And it sounds like it depends. One restaurant might have the ability to space out, do a parklet or whatever, but another restaurant might not have that opportunity. So then they get the priority for a municipal lot, I can imagine. There was a question, I think fees for using, hold on, let's see. For spaces being shared by businesses for outdoor use, what is the criteria for use? Insurance, fees, is the space used public event versus private, fee versus paid? Lots of question about fees.
We did have, we are requiring insurance coverage for use of public space, municipal space, just like we do for any, even outdoor dining we do. So there's just a standard policy, at least with the township in Maplewood, to have anyone using public space to provide, I think it's $1 million insurance policy, naming the township, as we don't get blamed for anything.
Yeah.
So there's also a lot of towns are talking about waiving fees, as you mentioned before, for outdoor dining, for outdoor cafes. In Maplewood, we don't charge an outdoor dining fee. In Summit, it's a pretty hefty one, but Summit is considering eliminating that fee for this season. So I think somebody mentioned the expediting of permits, and I think all of this kind of falls into the same category where the municipalities really need to understand the need for expediting permits and expediting COs and expediting pretty much everything that's possible, and thoughtful ones are doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was Brick for their outdoor seating said you don't have to go to the zoning board anymore. You can go right to the zoning officer. Let's see. Pam Stefan is asking, is anyone closing their main streets for outdoor dining where there are no parking spaces? I know this is already existing. Jersey City's Main Street has been shut down for a couple of years now, but that was pre-COVID. Anybody doing anything now on a temporary basis? Or
well, that
Stuart?
was one of the things about the ordinance that was being put together by in Hoboken right now, and they were just basically saying that we as the Business Alliance, the Improvement District, can petition the City Council to temporarily close down Washington Street or any other street thereof in the city. Now, even though they have parking spaces, the whole point here is to close down the entire street itself to make it a pedestrian, if you will, mall that extends all of the retail spaces and restaurants to move out into the street, and then allowing the sidewalks and of course everything being, with the 6-foot parameters and CDC rules. But the whole goal here is to allow for more retail operations to move out into the street as well. So we're looking at doing that both on Thursday evenings and on Sunday afternoons.
Thursday and Sunday. I'll say I will say my experience with the Jersey City one, it is a little weird because you can have your outdoor seating, but they still maintain, the 4 feet of sidewalk. But meanwhile, they have the whole road open too. In my opinion, they could probably just take the whole sidewalk because you have the pedestrian area in the middle. Right. So that's just something to consider as you're thinking about these things.
One of the things also is that we're allowing for all businesses on the main drags, if they have a wide enough sidewalks, to keep a 6-foot pathway, but also to allow for anybody to move outside and create a retail space outside, both dining and retail experiences. So it's expansion, basically allowing the expansion of the sidewalk to become part of the physical presence of the retail space.
And Courtenay, I have reached out to our assembly reps here for an answer to this question. She's looking into it. But right now, the NJDOT, according to Title 39, has only allows municipalities to close a street for 48 hours at a time. So I've reached out to see if that could be something that could be relaxed right now, so that towns could do this kind of thing that we're all talking about doing, without having to worry about DOT putting the kibosh on it.
So did that mean that Jersey City, did they vacate that street? Is that how they're able to do it all the time? Does anyone know? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they got, oh, yeah.
Stuart, they vacated, okay.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. I mean, they tried to do that years ago, 20 years ago, and eventually it started working out. They closed it down temporarily, and then it was now permanently vacated. And the city has worked with the improvement district and the historic downtown improvement district to maintain it. At the same time, you also need police presence and sanitation presence.
I'm going to add that one to our white
Yep.
paper of asks to the state.
I was going to say, Courtenay, that needs to be shared with the Governor's Recovery Council, because
Absolutely.
lots of municipalities are looking at doing open streets. And if there's some state provision that says, no, 48 hours, that's it, that's a problem.
Yeah. And actually, I'm getting to the next question, which is yours, Bob.
Right.
Curious as to what different municipalities are thinking about in terms of bringing back paid parking in 2020. Most municipalities are not charging right now, which actually does bring up the point that Stuart, they're charging to replace the parking authority, but are they actually collecting any fees right now?
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I was on a webinar a week or two ago with Roger Brooks. A lot of people probably know who he is. And his recommendation was for downtowns to not charge for the remainder of 2020. Parking authority or no parking authority. So I'm just curious as to what other municipalities are thinking about.
Anyone, if you want to jump in, you can unmute yourself and feel free to jump in. Or I will say, interesting, I was in Quebec, and that was one of the pictures, and they had a lot of parklets for outdoor seating. I'd say half the street on this CBD was parking spaces were taken for the parklets, and the rest of the spots were actually 15-minute limit because they don't want people just parking the car. Because like, if you're not going to charge the fees, how do you prevent people from just parking their car and leaving it there, right? So that's a concept that I found very interesting. It's just like, go do your pickup, get out, and leave the space for the pedestrians and for the parklets, the streeteries, whatever you want to call them. Anyone else want to add to that topic? Or all right, Cindy Reese has asked, has anyone worked with the county to use county roads for parklets, dining, walking lanes? My understanding is that Point Pleasant Beach has. And I don't know if we have, Kristen, you're with Point Pleasant Beach, right? She's on mute. Maybe she's not actually there. But yeah, I think a lot of towns are going to have to work with the counties. But it doesn't sound like anyone's on who has, successfully yet. Let's see. Oh boy, there is so much. Looking for questions. Closed streets, will there be communal tables for anyone to use? If so, what is the procedure to ensure the tables are clean and sanitized? And actually, there was a question much earlier that I missed because it was much earlier. And I haven't asked also to are bids buying some of these tables? Are they pitching in to do it as opposed to requiring all the owners? Does anyone want to talk about what they're planning with tables?
We have talked about it in Maplewood of in coordination with both SIDs of purchasing some, you know, the typical tables that everybody knows of, made famous in Bryant Park and all over New York, that are relatively inexpensive and can be moved around and left out without too much fear of theft. So we are talking about that in Maplewood. We already in Summit, the city has purchased them, but right now they're not putting them out until they get permission from the governor for outdoor dining, but obviously.
Can you
Does
just,
anyone, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to know where you're getting, who you're ordering your tables from.
Oh, there's a ton of suppliers. I could supply Courtney with some links. I did a lot of research last year for a program. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Thank you.
And it's really not expensive. This leads to a question that I want to go back to that's been asked in the chat about the cleanliness of those. I saw a response in the chat too that, you know, the thinking on how COVID is transmitting is changing, but nonetheless, we still have consumer perception, even before COVID, right? That I've done these pop-up cafes before. So the cleaning of those areas is it's a heavy lift. It's a logistical lift. And the only way I've managed it in the past is having the SID, you know, pay for it essentially and handle it. And so I would think in the post-COVID era, it's more important and we'll probably have to follow some guidelines. So there is a financial component. It's not as simple as putting tables out. Even if you can buy the tables, there's the next step in terms of maintaining the space and the cleanup that's needed. So I don't have any answers, just that it's a thought because we're looking at it as well. And I think the SID is going to sponsor the cleanup in these areas.
I think it depends on the size and budget of your SID. You know, our bigger SIDs, I think we had Chris Bernardo on, he might have dropped. You know, his firm provides services to a lot of the bigger SIDs and they're already out there and they're doing the cleaning. I do wonder for maybe some of the smaller ones, if it's a matter of buying industrial sized, you know, wipes and people kind of come in and do it themselves. Like I probably would have almost would have walked around with wipes and do it, even if the SID did clean it, come and do it again myself. So I do wonder if that's another thing that the SID could buy the dispensers and the wipes and blah, blah, blah. And it's, you know.
Yeah, I would just say going forward, if anybody has, you know, input or information on that and how they're handling it, it'd be great to share it because it's definitely going to be a heavy lift for a while, but something I think if you're a SID, you need to look at figuring out how to be able to do and how to be able to finance for your businesses because charging them is going to be pretty tough.
Yeah. There's something I've been really pushing for the DBIZ program to be reestablished. It hasn't given out any funding since fiscal year 2017. This would only apply for district management. It's a 0%, 10 to 15 year loan that is open to district management corporations. And, you know, I think if they reopen that program, there's $2 million in it, or just shy of $2 million. If they open it up, that could supply, you can build you buy the stuff for the parklets, buy the tables, you know, all of that and pay it back over 10, 15 years, as opposed to putting it out up front, and that'd be a huge help to your businesses. So I would recommend, I think that's one that as you know, we're pushing it, but if you guys can make those calls too, particularly those of you who are eligible for it, to try to bring that one back. Robin asked, are you expanding sidewalk use only for essential businesses or all businesses? My sense is this is in preparation for businesses being open. Yeah.
Oh.
Let's see. I'm looking to see if there's more questions. Oh, with on-street dining, will restaurants be able to serve alcohol? I think that's a good question. One depends on, it's actually interesting, and something I kind of saw in the write-up of Metuchen's is that if it's BYO, if your municipality allows it, they actually, you know, you can BYO and eat at these outdoor seating as long as it's your ordinance / resolution allows it. But if you hold a liquor license, we're waiting on the ABC to make the decision on the extension of premise. So your non-liquor license holding restaurants actually have a little bit of a leg up here until and unless ABC does something about the extension of premise. Does anyone else have a different take on that? That's my take. Yeah. Let's see. Cleaning, yes to alcohol.
Courtney,
Yes.
I did. This is John Donio from the Wildwood.
Hey, John.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for this. I just real quick. We in Wildwood have loosened up the restrictions on alcohol. It's in conjunction with the ABC. They're allowing alcohol as long as it's and including mixed drinks, as long as it's in a sealed container. You can take out alcohol and bring to outdoor dining. That was worked out in conjunction again with the ABC.
Yes.
So, and I think they'll do it on
that's for curbside pickup and delivery. But if you have outdoor dining beyond your premise, I think they haven't worked that out.
Oh,
like,
I see.
To be served. So I guess if you went into the restaurant and got takeout and you got your cocktail and then you went and sat at a table outside, you could do that. So maybe that's a loophole. But
that could be a workaround.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just looking. Guys, feel free to jump in and ask your questions.
So this is Victor Luca from Maplewood. I was on a call with ABC State on Monday.
Okay.
And they are looking to do this expansion of premises through the state ABC. So it won't be your local ABC. You just need to have your police chief and your township clerk approve the application. So the licensed premises would go directly to the state ABC so they could use their parking lot or the outside of their building to expand their premise.
Okay, so clerk and police chief?
Yep.
Are they charging?
They didn't talk about that.
How long is that taking?
They're moving on it as soon as they can.
And then if there's an application, what's the turnaround time on it?
Yeah.
They didn't talk about that, but it's supposed to be as quick as possible. They recognize what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Anyone else have questions, comments, ideas? I kind of open it up now. I'm gonna stop looking through the chat.
Oh, I did want to share something. I think it's we've done this we did it in Maplewood a week ago today, and I actually just did the same thing in Summit. I think it's important to get input from whether it's opening it up to all your businesses, a Zoom meeting like this, or just a select number of businesses from different genres to meet virtually with this, have the SID coordinated or the municipality coordinated, to have local electeds on the call, as well as to hear from the businesses of what they need, because your local electeds don't run restaurants and don't run retail or service. They don't know what they need. So I think that the meeting we had last Friday in Maplewood really helped us to sort of hone down and figure out all those resolutions we passed. And I expect the meeting we had this morning in Summit to do the same for Summit Common Council on their meeting on Tuesday night, to see what the businesses need from the municipality, that only the municipality can do. So I think it's a really helpful thing in both towns that I've done it in. So I would suggest that to anyone out there.
Nancy, can I tag on that? This is Isaac and Metuchen again. We did direct one-on-one outreach to businesses as we were putting our rules together. And I think we are thinking and talking with the borough about launching our initiative to all the businesses on a call, like you described. But one other thing I want to put out to everyone, one of the best practices I'm seeing emerge nationally is taking that whole bundle of services to help businesses with reopening, for opening back up, to just go through all of that on a call, whether it be through the permitting and the applications, but also if there's funding or if there's technical assistance to figure out how to go omni-channel to work with your technology and introduce all of that at once to the businesses on a call. And one other thing, no one's talked about providing direct funding to businesses. Over the last 2 years, we've done about $100,000 of matching grants to our businesses for storefronts and other things. And right now we're looking at a reopening type grant, probably capped at about $1,000 per business that they can apply to the SID and receive this grant to help with any number of things that will assist with reopening. So I think it's really important if we have the resources to put them out there and kind of help the businesses get through this.
I think that's great, Isaac. And that's another potential use for the DBiz. You know, in the past, towns were using it to fund their facade programs. Maybe we don't worry about facade programs, but we worry about reopening. And it was, you know, the business could come to the SID for either a grant or a loan or half grant and loan combo. And the SID was matching the money that they got from the DBiz loan program to kind of facilitate these type of things.
Yeah, we did. That's a really good idea, Isaac, to take. I was going to say this also about using funds that the SID's budgeted for events to help fund some of the reopening things. You know, that events that we've canceled already, and using that money to fund what used to be a facade grant program, but now for a reopening grant program. I think it's a really good idea. In Summit, we've been lucky enough to have a very generous community that has donated over $350,000 that I've distributed in grants ranging from $2,000 to $5,500 to 127 different businesses in the city. But that's you know, that's not possible for all towns. So if there's money in the SID budgets that's not being utilized as planned, it would be a nice way to even, you know, the businesses, even when those that received $2,000, they practically, you know, broke down in tears just for having some money to help them. And then as we go forward to reopening, if that's possible, that would also be great.
Yeah, and to jump in on Nancy and Isaac's point, in Westfield, we had a fund also that raised quite a bit of money, not as much as Summit, but close. Quite a bit of money to give out to businesses that were needy. So what we're planning to do is we're gonna, instead of doing grants like they're doing in Metuchen, we're gonna try and come up with reopening kits that we can give out to all of our businesses. That'll include hand sanitizers and gloves and custom masks. And right now we're helping them with, we're gonna pay for banners that say that they're open or open for pickup and delivery, so that give them a boost in that way.
By the way, any of you who have funds and you are downtown New Jersey members, the next newsletter, we want to spotlight the good things that you're doing. So if you have one of those funds and you are a downtown New Jersey member, or you will or quickly want to become a downtown New Jersey member so we can spotlight you, we are writing an article spotlighting all the towns doing these good things. So, and please reach out and send me a paragraph about what you're doing.
Should I make you jealous, Bob?
Very jealous.
No, I'm going to make you more jealous.
No, I'm not jealous at all. I'm very. It's amazing the amount of generosity that people.
We have this one donor who matched the first fund, so we have an additional $350,000 for $10,000 loans to up to like 40 businesses for up to $10,000 loans. So it's crazy. I mean, what a wonderful problem to have. I mean, it's causing me a lot more work, but
wow.
Administering them and sending out checks. So
I think Julie was saying you could share with them.
I don't think they'll let me.
Okay, so there was a question for those of you who in the chat for these funds. I think, Robin, we're actually going to write an article. But maybe, I don't know if those of you who have funds would be interested in doing one of these Zooms about, you know, the details of how you set it up, how you're distributing it, blah, blah, blah. So I think that could be a future Zoom call with those of you who have them, and we just kind of go into that. Anybody else? Suggestions, questions?
Yes, I have a question. This meeting was absolutely wonderful and gave me so much information. I'm in Englewood, New Jersey. Our city council meets on Tuesday, and I told them I would present them the ideas from today and what Hoboken was doing and Metuchen was doing. Is there any way I can get some of this information and put it together so I can present it?
Yes, Carol, I'm gonna get I've got, I think the resolutions from Maplewood, Hoboken, and Metuchen are ready, as well as like PowerPoints that support what they're doing. And I'm gonna get that all up online. You can take it and plug and play.
This is great. I love all of you. I have learned so much I can't tell you. Thank you.
Great. That's the idea. Anybody else? Well, if not,
Courtney, real quick,
go
Isaac
ahead.
here. Sorry, don't want to take your thunder. Just make sure CDBG funds are on your radar. I know it can be a little tricky to administer them, but I do anticipate that some will be coming to provide relief to small businesses. And I would take you up on your offer too on the follow-up about all the sources of funding and maybe how we can establish statewide some best practices about how we can both get funding and then push it out where the need is greatest.
Yeah, and UEZ. I know Trenton is using their UEZ money to help their businesses. And those of you who do have access, I think you should be talking to your counties now if it's passed through from the county. And then some of the bigger cities actually have their own CDBG funds. Jersey City's grant program is they're using the CDBG funds for their relief fund.
Hey, Courtenay, Jeff Bueller here.
Hey,
sorry, there's no video on my 2009 state computer, but eventually they'll upgrade. So a couple things. One, in our neighborhood preservation program, we have several of our districts and communities that are developing or almost launching direct grant and technical assistance program efforts to their local NPP district businesses. So that's a real thing that state funds are going to through my NPP program to help fund business sustainability and support. That's one thing. Those details are going to be forthcoming. We're about to launch a program down in Millville. We've got a couple others statewide as well. Regarding CDBG CV funds or COVID funds, there's absolutely the potential to use those funds to provide direct grants to small businesses that are low mod and that hire low mod and retain low mod employees. I can certainly send you a link to Seattle's program, which is a model program that they started actually back in March. And there's no question that whether it's a direct grant, whether you're a direct CDBG grantee, a county consortium member, or a small cities program, that those kind of expenses will be eligible under CDBG CV. So just A, it's being done, and B, it can still be done, and that's direct, these are full grants that will support businesses as they transition, hopefully out of the COVID period.
Great, yeah, please send me that link, Jeff.
No problem.
Anybody else on this topic? Because I see some stuff about tax assessments, and I'm happy to let the conversation ride into that. I just want to see if there's any more on this.
Yeah, this is Victor. Just one more thing. The CARES money, C-A-R-E-S, that's the federal money that came down.
Yeah.
Municipalities are getting that money either directly or through the counties. In that, there is one of the criteria for spending it is on communication to deal with COVID-19. So we're going to be looking at how we can support some signage in our districts and pay for it with this funding. It wouldn't help a specific business, but it could help the districts as a whole.
Yeah.
Who's getting that money, Victor?
So the bigger cities get it directly, or else it goes through the county, and then how it gets broken down, the county is making those determinations.
Is that the $50 million?
No.
No, this is a lot of money.
Okay, what's it called?
CARES, C-A-R-E-S.
Okay, thank you.
It's a federal stimulus money.
It's coming from the state, right? It's getting funneled through the state, or is it right from the Fed to the?
I think the Fed's to the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm happy to, to keep this open if people want to chat about tax appeals, or we can leave that for another day. But there was a question up there about, getting your assessments, tax appeals, blah, 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 which is off topic and fine. But, or we can leave it. Sounds like we're leaving it. We'll attack that one another time, Robin. So I want to thank you all. Enjoy a socially distanced beach weekend if that's what you do plan to do. And we'll see you. Like I said, we're taking next week off. Stay tuned for what the week after will be.
Thanks, Courtenay.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.